is open 24/7 for you. You can call, you can complain, you can rant, you can rave, you can ask questions. Just call or text 201-564-5007, and we will keep it anonymous unless you want us to shout you out on our podcast. But more importantly, I have a former student of mine, Beth Bradley, in the studio with us today. Hi, Beth.
Hi, David. I'm so excited for this.
It's so funny. You and I met, what, 2019?
2019. Yep.
2019. And I want to first let's hear where your salon is, where you're located, what's the name of the salon, so people can kind of have an idea of where we're talking about.
Okay, great. So the name of the salon is the Collective Hair Studio. We are located in North Palm Beach, Florida. We, as of January 10th next year, will be open 5 years. Thank you. We're very excited.
So you and I met in 2019. What brought you to DTH? Like, how did you find us?
So I was in a situation, I was at a salon that I was at for a very long time, and I knew I wanted to leave, and I was not going to go and work for somebody else. I wanted to open my own business, and I knew that there was I knew everything there was to know behind the chair, but I didn't know anything about how to open a business. And I stumbled on you guys on Instagram, and I signed up for, I think, a free consultation or something. I hadn't even signed my lease yet, if I remember correctly. You and I
you hadn't, I don't think you had done anything yet.
No, I was still at the salon, at my old salon.
Yeah.
Yes. And you were like, you asked me a bunch of questions, and you were like, do you have a husband? Could you like survive for a year? Whatever. Yes. So I had not found the space yet. I don't even think. Mm-hmm. So that was, I think, in July or August of 2019, because I signed my lease October 2019.
Yep. And I remember, you were working at this very established salon.
Correct.
In your area.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of churn and burn there.
Oh, yeah. Right? Yep.
And I remember talking to you, and you kind of told me, like, I would like to eventually one day open a salon. Like, the way that you first talked about it was like, I know that this isn't working anymore. I eventually would like to do this. And of course, in coach fashion, I was like, let's just do it now. And but I just remember, you were really nervous. But what was your biggest fear? You obviously wanted to do it because you called for coaching, right? But what was your biggest fear making that transition from working at a very established salon to then going and opening your own? What was the fear within that?
Getting sued, which happened. I wasn't scared of failing. I wasn't scared of doing it. I was scared of getting sued, which is exactly what happened. We can get into that later. Yeah. But that was my biggest fear leaving. I had been at that salon for 11 years, but I had worked with that team of people for probably closer to 15 or 16. So it was nerve-wracking. But the legal part was what really was the scariest to me.
And what was, I think being sued is like a worst case scenario for most people. The worst case scenario came true. How did you survive that? I mean, I was with you for a lot of it, but
all of it.
All of it. Where do we even start with the listeners? Where do we even start with what happened?
It's so long, but this is my brief sort of synopsis. Is I started working with you. I was ready to make the move. I signed my lease. I opened my salon January 10th, 2020. I closed. Who knew COVID was coming? I closed March 15th. I was closed longer than I was open. Because I was an employee in 19 and not a business, I wasn't allowed any PPP or SBA. I had 3 people that worked for me at the time. I decided to end a 17-year marriage. I got sued. I had a legal action put against me. I thought I was going to lose the salon. And then 3 days after I reopened from COVID in May, my mom died. So it was a huge, it was the trifecta. It was like, there's nothing worse. I say now that like I'm bulletproof. I mean, really, and I couldn't have gotten through any of it without you. And I've said that to your face. I've emailed that to you. I've spoken about you on podcasts. I've told other people there is no way I could have gotten through without your coaching and your support.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, and I'm happy to have been the person, because to go through a death, to go through being sued, to going through a pandemic, to going through ending a 17-year marriage, this was probably, of all the students I've had, that is the most. I've dealt with all those things individually, right, with students, but to have them all happen at once, it was a really scary time watching you, because I didn't know. Every day was a different
Every day.
Every day was a different feeling. Every day was a different energy. The goals kept changing because the world was in a weird place. And I remember during that time, and you have told me this, and you have told me this too, but I remember telling you everything happens for your benefit, and you wanting to probably crawl through the phone and slap me in the face.
Yeah.
But you have then, in the past, I've seen images, I've seen you on other podcasts, you kind of keep bringing that statement up.
I always do.
I'd love to share with the listeners, like, what did you think when I first said that to you, and then how do you hear it now?
This is my favorite David Bosher story, but it's also so true. So I was home we weren't open yet. You and I were on a Zoom call, and I was a disaster. Like, they had just filed the injunction against me. I knew
this is because you broke a non-compete.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. After I had been told by 10 different attorneys that I was going to be fine. It's a right to work state. Yeah. So the injunction was filed. I decided to get divorced. I had found out during that time that I wasn't just getting divorced, but that he was cheating on me. My mom was very close to death at that point. And I'm telling you all these things. And I'm like, I have no money. I just opened. I'm sitting here. All these things are happening. And you had the nerve to say to me, Beth, this is all real and this is all happening, but believe me that the universe is doing this for your benefit, were your exact words. And my response was, fuck you, David. Fuck you. And I almost fired you that day, but I think I was so overwhelmed. Like, I couldn't even deal with one more breakup, one more disappointment. So I was like, I'm keeping David on for right now. And I've gone through other things since then, but on my 3-year anniversary, I had my grand opening / 3-year party, because I couldn't do it because of COVID. I text you, or I called you, I don't remember, and said, you were right. And even though I wouldn't wish any of those things on anybody, you were right. And for whatever odd reason, it had to happen the way it did for me. The universe put those things in place for me to be the type of leader that I am now. And one of the things that's so incredible about DTH, and I was really lucky because I think a lot of people come to you and Sid as like a last resort, like things aren't working, right?
Yep.
I hired with no expectation, no idea. So it was easier for me to implement the things that you taught me about reactivity, about coaching, about stepping away from the chair and being an owner and not a hairdresser. And I just wanted to share this really quick story because some people might not get it, but you will. One of my first employees, Samantha, who I adore, came to me with basically like no clientele. She built up, she's amazing, just crushed it, like grew more in a year than I've ever seen anybody grow.
Yeah. So
proud of her. She comes to me one day and she says, I love you so much, but I'm leaving. I'm going to open up my own suite. Right? Sheer panic. You know, there's 10 grand a month walking out the salon. It was my first big stylist. And I was in the car by myself and I thought, this is your opportunity. This is what David worked with me. And this is my opportunity and my lesson to be the owner that I want to be and not what I came from. I didn't want to be the owner that was like, get the fuck out, pack your shit, talk stuff, sue her. Like that, again, was the universe teaching me people are going to go and it's not personal. And this is the time. I had been talking the talk, hey, I'm this kind of owner. I run this kind of salon. I'm supportive of all stylists. This was my opportunity. And as sad as I was, I said, I'm so glad that you picked me. And Sam and I are still good friends. And I've had several other hairdressers come to me and they are now working for themselves or in their suites. And I'm so proud of them. And every single one of them still calls me for advice, still comes to the salon and says, I could not have done this without you.
And that's how it should have always been.
Yes, I'm the most proud of that.
Yeah. And that's a huge even with all the work, the minute someone leaves, you do have to make a choice as a business owner. You have to make a choice how you're going to react. And is it going to be your animal lizard brain that's like, again, like, fuck you, get out of here, burn the bridge like we've all had happen to us, get sued. Like,
right. I built you. I gave you those clients. Yeah, that bullshit.
Yeah. And like, it's funny because Sid and I talk about this a lot is because we live in the DTH like bubble, we forget that like, that's still so common. Like that still happens every day. And the beautiful thing about, the open door policy, that's kind of what we call that. But that open door policy where you can come and go is that you don't know what's going to happen next year. And we've seen people leave salons and then come back years later and go, you know what? I did the sweet thing, but I knew I could come back here, no problem. And like, so it's not the full story yet. You know what I mean? Like people can leave, but by doing things this way, by changing our attitude around people leaving, we open the door for opportunity in the future. We don't know. Not everyone wants to be in a suite the rest of their life. It's very rare. It's a lifelong journey. And we've already had some of our students say, oh yeah, someone left and 2 years later they came back and they were like, I hated working for myself, but I was so happy I knew I could come back to this commission salon. So again, life is long and it's not worth burning down every bridge. Right?
No, and something you told me that it resonated later on, obviously not in the beginning, but now that I'm coming on 5 years, I realize it's another David lesson that's so true. The team you start with, and I heard Rachel say this in her podcast, the team you start with is not the team you end with. And that is very true. And I had the opportunity to meet a fellow salon owner in the area. He's owned a salon for 45 years. 45 years in South Florida. He's a legend. And I just walked up to him and I shook his hand and I was like, Dennis, it's like, you don't know me. I introduced myself. And he said, the hardest lesson I've learned and the biggest evolution I've made as an owner is, he said, 20, 25 years ago, I used to send my whole staff to hair shows and this, and I did all these things. And he goes, and then they would leave and it would break my heart. And I would be so upset and devastated and mad. Right? I built these people. And he said that, because that was his mindset. And he said, and now I realize I fell in love with them. They left and you'll fall in love again and again and again and again. I was like, yes, that is Absolutely. So, but I was so impressed that somebody that he's an older gentleman was able to shift his mindset, because most salon owners that are that old school salon owner, like the person I worked for, especially straight men, straight Italian men, because I worked for one for a long time. He really was able to kind of shift his mindset and pivot.
But how cool it took him that long and it didn't take you that long. And then it doesn't have to take.
Because I didn't have to unlearn. I feel like a lot of, I follow so many and I still keep in touch with so many people from DTH, even though I don't work with you guys anymore. And I didn't have to unlearn what a lot of owners do. The method to this day, the way I'm not reactive, my team actually makes memes and makes fun that I'm the chillest boss they've ever had. But if they knew how long it took me to get to that point with you, and even the way I run my business now with doing whatever services they want to, we don't charge hourly, but they charge hourly because I've worked with them enough to know, hey, if a partial balayage is 3.5 hours and you're charging $350 and a partial highlight is the same amount of time but you're charging $450, we gotta make sure you're making the same amount of money for time. They're like, oh yeah.
Exactly.
So
Once you know hourly pricing, you can you can really have
you
fun
can
with
play with it. Yeah. And it
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like a set thing for me anyway. But
Yeah.
the way I manage my team and the way I do have an open door policy and I am so non-reactive. Now, you know this. I go home sometimes and I'm like, what the fuck? Or I just had 2 big stylists leave recently.
Yeah.
Again, no harm, no foul. One wanted to go into a suite, one's going back to school, and it was a lot of money, right? And I'm like, okay, Beth, this is what you prepared for. And guess what? 2 stylists showed back up. They're new and we have to, build their books, but
You'll fall in love again.
I'll fall in love again. Yeah.
It's so great. It's funny because we worked together and I love that you didn't do hourly pricing and yet you still had such great success. Because I think people get really hung up on like, oh, well, I can't work with them because they want you to do this and do that. And obviously I pushed you to do hourly pricing. And you didn't want to do it. You didn't do it. But I love that you didn't do it and you still got so much from the program because that's the goal here. The goal is not hourly pricing.
And I still worked with you. Like I remember you're like, okay, well, we're going to set a date when we're going to do this and we're going to do this and we're going to do this. And one day I just said, David, I'm not doing hourly. It's the only thing that's making me reactive. Like, let's take it off the table and focus on something else. And you were like, okay. And I think people are intimidated. It's like therapy. Like working with DTH is your coach gives you suggestions, right? And I would say 95% of the suggestions you gave me, I did and still implement today.
Right.
The hourly pricing for me was such a small portion of the whole experience.
Right.
Like my therapist might tell me, I want you to do this, this, and this. I might not do it in its entirety. It doesn't mean the therapy isn't working. So if I could tell anybody that is like thinking about, well, I want to work with DTH, because when I talk about it, you guys are like, oh, they only want to do hourly and they only want to do no tipping. And I'm like, where did you hear that? These are just fucking suggestions. Like I might suggest to you that like, hey, you should use 9G instead of 9. You don't have to take it. Like I didn't do every single thing that David told me to do, guys. Like I didn't. I did a lot of it.
And so you still thrived.
Yeah. And I still use a lot of it. And like I said, I might not use hourly pricing, but I use it as a big model for when I sit down with my one-on-ones, because I want my team to know exactly how much their time is worth.
Exactly.
Because that's important.
It's still a crucial method to know. And like anything, when you learn the methods, the goal isn't that you become a DTH salon. I'm doing air quotes, DTH salon. The goal is that you become a critical thinker.
Yeah.
And you become emotionally intelligent and you learn to take personal responsibility.
Don't even know where she came from.
For those of you not watching the video version, Beth's cat just came right across the screen. Beautiful calico cat, right?
She's a tortie, but yeah.
I
don't even know where she came from.
You're like, that's not my cat. One of the biggest things I remember, one of the best moments I remember of coaching you was when everything shut down for COVID and we talked about charity and you turned your salon into a food bank because we were like, what are we going to, this space is just sitting here. And I remember you turned it into a food bank, and I want the listeners to know how you used your salon during COVID, not just to make money, but like the mindset of like, the space is here. How do I benefit the community? Because charity is networking. It's exposure. It's yes, we do it because we want to help others, but as a business owner, it's such a great thing to do to promote your business. Tell people a little bit about that story.
That was an amazing, again, David suggestion. I was feeling sorry for myself. All these things were happening to me, for me. And we were on a call and you said, well, what are you going to do? Like, what's important to you? And we got off the phone and I thought, what is important to me? And I was in such a dark depression at that time because of everything that was going on. And I remember basically all I was doing was going to the grocery store every day because that was like the only thing that was open. And I thought, you know what? All this stuff is happening to me for me. And thank God I can feed my kid. I can put food on the table, right? Like I'm not going hungry. And I thought that's something that's always been near and dear to my heart, which was the Palm Beach County Food Bank here and feeding families. And so I reached out to them and I was shocked to learn, especially in this community, because it's a vanity market here. There's a lot of money here in South Florida. And I was shocked to hear that 35% of kids that go to school in Palm Beach County, which is huge, rely on either free breakfast and free lunch. And in some counties, they even have programs where they send the kids home with food on the weekends. Well, when the schools shut down, there were so many communities that were food deficient. People weren't getting hot meals. And I was like, this is wild. I went on right after and I did a Facebook message and I put it on Instagram. I was like, hey, I'm opening the salon for the next 2 weeks. If you want to drop off food or a donation, we'd love it. Well, it blew up. We filled the salon.
I remember seeing photos of
1,650 feet front to back, over 1,000 pounds of food, 1,000 pounds of food. And we raised a little over $5,000. I had a doctor. Somebody sent him my Facebook video, wasn't a client, didn't know him, and messaged me and said, hey, a patient or a friend sent me this video. I feel so blessed that my practice has been doing so well this year. I would love to donate $2,500. And it turned into, I had other hairdressers show up. I had a barber, my friend Joe, who owns a barber shop in town, showed up with like a truck full of food. And I was like, Joe, this is wild. And his wife owns a salon in town. And he said, and I had forgotten about it. He said, Beth, he runs a toy drive every year out of his barbershop. And I always, for years, have stopped by and just given him a bunch of gift cards.
Yeah.
And he said, I've finally been waiting to do something for you. And why not do this? And it was, my team showed up, everyone had masks on and we were, standing outside. We were washing down the cardboard boxes, like we were nuts at that time. We didn't know. And then I had all these people just call and volunteer because the food banks weren't running their semi trucks,
right?
Because they were out in the fields, like distributing to people. I just called people and I was like, hey, can I like fill your car up and drop all this food off? And they were like, yeah, absolutely. And it was awesome.
How did that impact you as a business owner?
I think it really made me realize, and maybe it's my mindset, that community over competition is the new thing. Really, when you run your business the way, like I run my business, I feel like how I run my life, which is being giving, being open, being charitable. And that's the kind of clientele and that's the kind of team that I've attracted. And now I have all these business owners, salon owners, or what have you, that I've become, that I network with, all different. A clothing store, a spray tan company, retail stores that I work, so other salon owners. And it taught me that I don't ever need to be scared when I have an idea of sharing that idea.
Yeah.
Like it's, I don't have to be scared of, someone might say, that's fucking dumb. Okay. There's going to be 10 people that are going to say, wow, I love that you did that. How can I help?
Exactly.
The vulnerability, I think, of being an owner is scary and something that I practice a lot because it is scary to have someone tell you that's a dumb idea, or no, I don't want to work for you, or if your team says, I don't want to do that. But I've learned that when I lean into that, I usually get a big lesson.
Yeah. And it always comes out. This is what I try to tell people, is that you're always going to get on the other side. Always. You're destined to get to the other side of every process. How you want to go through the process, that's really where that coaching and mentoring kind of comes in. How do you think coaching changed your life outside of work?
Oh, I really, it's such a small part of coaching in the beginning, but the reactivity exercises, I think has helped tremendously. And I don't know if you remember me mentioning, but one of my best friends, Lauren, who was going through a lawsuit at the same time as me and a terrible breakup. We were like going through it together, right?
Yeah.
And we'll always say like, gosh, I can't believe we've come so far. I think the biggest thing is realizing that, number one, I'm going to get on the other side of it. Number two, I think there's really a lesson in almost everything.
Yep.
And also, even in my personal life, just walking away from something if it doesn't serve me. If it's not on my agenda, or I said this in a podcast recently, I don't do anything lukewarm anymore, right? Like I don't hire lukewarm hairdressers. I don't do lukewarm love. I don't do lukewarm business deals. If I'm not fully passionate about it, I just don't do it. And I think a lot of owners try so many different things to please so many different people. And I never did that because I just I didn't start my business that way because of you. And it's trickled over into that. And I think that because it's trickled over into my personal life, I can now almost help somebody that's going through that situation and look at it from a different perspective and be like, I know you're mad, sad, or angry about this, but here's you can't see what's really going on. So now I can see like the big picture.
Yeah. And you can share that with everyone.
And not to say that I don't, have reactive moments, because of course I do, but I don't sit in it anymore. I don't, like when my recent 2 stylists left, I was upset for a couple days. I canceled, I had a big vacation and I canceled it because it was the right thing to do financially. And I was upset. And then I was like, you know what? What can you do?
Right. I
can start rebuilding. I can start looking for other hairdressers. I can start doing things. So it's helped in so many ways, David.
Yeah. I love hearing, I love students that I haven't talked to in a while. You're one of, like, obviously we keep in touch here and there, but hearing how it's still affecting you to this day, that's what for a coach, it gives you energy to kind of keep going. Because sometimes you don't know what happens when people leave coaching or you lose touch or whatever. But there's hearing people that have left and they're like, no, this changed the trajectory of where I was going. That's how I felt with my coach. And so that's always the experience I want to give to other people. What about financially? Like, what was life like before you owned a business as a stylist at this other salon to now have your own salon? And how did DTH help you understand finances or build real wealth?
So I will say I made a lot of money at my old salon, but I was not fulfilled at all. I was doing lukewarm hair. I was doing 12 people a day. Like I didn't like the people I worked with. Like I did it. I worked like that for many, many, many years, and I was just over it. And I walked away.
People a day.
David, 12 people a day. I was doing between $1,500 and $1,800 a day. Like I was killing it.
You were almost killing yourself, but
I was killing myself. I had zero energy for anything else. And I've always been someone that, even while I was married, was very adamant about making my own money, having my own savings. And, the first couple of years of being in business, it's really hard to say how much money I made or not, because I decided to settle my lawsuit. I could have kept fighting. I just one day said, I'm done. It's only money. It's just money. And the day I signed that check, and it was a lot of money, it was the best day of my life.
Yeah.
So
and you could sign the check.
Yeah.
Like the money
and it took me a long time to like pay myself back, but I have not only paid myself back, but now I pay myself a salary and I have savings and I have no credit card debt.
Wow.
Which is terrific. And I think that's something I really learned working with you guys too is, things happen. And I was doing great financially until last summer. And it wasn't anyone's fault. Our building got purchased and they did all these, assessments and such. And I got hit with a pretty huge assessment, even though I negotiated it down. So that took a chunk of money. But again, I had it.
Yeah, that's the part.
I had it. I'll make it back, and I kind of feel like, honestly, I'm glad at this point that I did not get all that SBA and shit. I don't even understand like the money that
Yeah.
people got, salon owners, because a lot of salon owners I know,
They're still paying it back.
number one, they didn't think they were going to have to pay it back, or they took way more than they needed. And all of a sudden they're like, oh my God, I have to pay, $4,000 to $5,000 back a month. And
Right.
I don't have that. My goal is to, build the salon enough that at some point I could sell it.
Yeah.
And I'm not there now, but my recent goal is to have enough employees and create enough revenue that I would like to, starting in January or February, offer my team health insurance.
Yeah.
It's a huge goal. I give them a week's paid vacation, and they earn a week's paid vacation.
Yep.
And also I give them a $500 credit towards education. But if I could become a salon that starts to either contribute to a retirement or health insurance, I'm not sure which one, that is a huge financial goal for me.
Have you heard of Hairdresser Healthcare?
No.
We have a healthcare company.
I did not know this.
Hairdresserhealthcare.com. You can give your employees Blue Cross Blue Shield full coverage for very cheap, and you don't have to participate in it unless you want to as an owner. Because that was the biggest thing when we created Hairdresser Healthcare. We're like, we've got to make it so the owner doesn't have to pay if they can't, but they can still offer the group plan. So go to
That's why I haven't, because I can't afford to
you can afford this because you can either put towards it or not.
Wow.
And it's full
See,
coverage.
guys, still learning from David. 2019, we're going strong.
But yeah, don't wait to get it because you don't have to participate. If you go with like a big Aetna or like a big company, they're going to make you pay.
That's what's been holding me back. I've been trying to look into it for 2 years.
No, Hairdresser Healthcare. And if you need any help, let us know. It's our
Okay.
project.
Cool. Yeah, for sure. That's awesome.
But yeah, and we tell people, like, as you grow your business and you're able to offer more and more to your staff, that is something that everybody wants to do, and they get really caught up in the revenue of their business. But how would you say your thoughts about money have shifted since coaching?
I think I don't live in a scarcity mindset. Now, again, do I get scared about money when I see of course.
We all do.
But the thing that coaching has taught me is, okay, what can I do? Where can I adjust? Like, have I been, and I'll audit myself first, right? Like, Beth, have you been, ordering DoorDash too much? Have you been not paying attention to what the stylists are? Are they over mixing color? Is there a way that I could scale X, Y, and Z back? Because I think you just have to do that. And in this day and age, in this economy, I think you just always have to be looking at ways to make money and also save money, because in our area, while we're a seasonal area, the salon isn't super seasonal. But when you lose, one or two huge books,
yep,
whatever the reason, that revenue's gone. So how can you recreate it? And you can't recreate it right away when it's, 15, 20 grand, but you can reduce your expenditures so that you're not panicking about money.
Right. And you can work more if you want. That's the beauty of being a hairdresser, right?
Yep.
And I also think we always tell people to just always be hiring, always be looking.
Always be hiring. Yep.
Because it helps with these moments, right? Because people are going to leave.
Yeah, they are.
Inevitable.
They are.
Right?
Yeah.
And the choice we have to make is, are we going to sue them for money, which just destroys everyone's lives, right?
It's the worst.
Or are we going to support them any way that we possibly can? And the support route is so much more difficult. What would you tell people that are listening that are like, DTH sounds scary. DTH sounds intimidating. DTH sounds, I don't know if I can handle that type of coaching. What do you tell them as someone who is here?
Buckle up. No, I'm just kidding. No, I think that anything new is scary. And I think a lot of salon owners, when they come to you guys, are scared, right? They're possibly in debt. They're, or maybe it's someone like me that doesn't even know where to start. I would say anything new is scary, right? But the reason people come to coaching is because what they're doing isn't working, right?
Right.
Like, what's scarier, trying something or knowing that what you're doing isn't working?
Right.
Again, I'm lucky I didn't have to unlearn anything, so it wasn't as scary for me. But if you're doing something and it's not working and you're like, man, I really need to hire a coach or something, then you're clearly not scared of trying something new.
Exactly. And what would you tell the person who wants to open a commission salon, but they keep hearing that commission is not how you make money, it's not a good pay structure? What would you tell someone that's hearing that feedback?
I think, and myself included, I think it's scary to open a commission-based salon because suites are a huge thing right now. We know that. What you can do is structure your business so that you make it exciting for a person to come work for you, and tell them what you offer them, right? Like, all you're getting with a suite is a room, right? And a lot of hairdressers think, well, I'm going to go to a suite because I'm going to make all my money. It doesn't work like that. Like, you have rents are skyrocketing. I think we're going to see a big shift in the next couple years of people leaving suites and coming back to salons like mine. Absolutely. That are healthy environments, because people don't realize how much it costs to run a business, and especially in this day and age. So you've got salon suites charging $500-$600 a week. Your color order is a couple $100. Hey, now if you do double book or you work with an assistant, you can't because you don't have space.
Right.
You are not just going in and doing hair. You are answering the phone, paying your own taxes, going to the beauty supply store.
And
what happens if
tax sucks?
Self-employment tax is no joke. And guess what? Also, guys, yeah, will you make more money if you're a very busy stylist and you go to a suite? Yeah, guess what it's going to do? It's going to throw you into a higher tax bracket. But and you have to pay those taxes. Right. I pay their taxes. Like, right. The salon owner pays your payroll taxes and all those things. And we do the ordering and we do all that thing. So I was the employee that thought for years, well, I give my boss 50%. If you think your boss keeps 50% or whatever it is,
it's not true.
You are sadly mistaken. Like, out of whatever it is. So I think that me running the collective the way that I do, and because people have left, and I always say my door is open. I actually tell my girls, I say, listen, go make a lot of money and come back and buy this from me.
Exactly.
And I'll manage it for you. Or I'll be an advisor. But I think that shift, taxes, real estate, everything's going up. Salon suite people are still commercial realtors. They're smart, right? They don't give a shit. It's just a room. They're going to raise the rents. They're never going to stay the same. All the expenses go up. Nothing stays the same. And it's very difficult, I think, as a suite owner. How are you generating new business? How are you if you're already booked, I'm so booked I have to leave and open my own suite. But how you're going to make the same amount of money if you're doing the same amount of clients and working the same amount of hours.
Yeah. And the biggest thing for me is what happens if you can't work.
What do you do if you get pregnant? You're paying for your suite for, let's say you work until your 8th month or whatever, and you want to take 3.
Exactly.
You better have a lot of money in savings to pay for an empty room. And a lot of salon suites have gotten smart. It used to be back in the day that you could like sub your space out. Like if I had a space, I could be like, now you can't. Now you can't. What happens if you need to take a leave of absence? Or what happens if you're a book solid stylist and you get COVID? Like just happened to me a couple weeks ago. I never had it. It wiped me out.
Right.
Thank God I have a team of people to take care of my clients, because what if you're a stylist like, yeah, I'm booked 6-8 weeks out. Okay. And when you're booked 6-8 weeks out, mazel, that's amazing. But you have to take 3 or 4 days off, or your appendix versus whatever. And now you can't get those clients in. They're pissed.
Right. Exactly.
They're pissed.
And then DTH says the answer is to open a commission salon. The commission salon is so vital to the health of our industry. It's just that the old way of doing it doesn't work.
No.
And we try to tell people all the time, commission is a pay structure, not a culture. So everyone's like, well, if you have a commission salon, you have to do A, B, and C. No. You can do whatever you want. You're just getting paid a commission portion of
Correct.
your work. So that's the biggest thing I always want to tell people is like, just because you do commission doesn't mean you have to do the cookie cutter version that you have been kind of sold and seen kind of copy and pasted. You can do whatever you want. You can offer unlimited freedom. You can offer an open door policy. You can offer unlimited time off. You can allow people to choose their pricing, right? And they're like, well, that's rental. It's like, no, that we're talking about pay structures. You're talking about culture, right? So you look at salons like yours where you can offer what rental offers and still get paid commission.
I use the DTH slogan when I interview people, and I tell them I have a commission-based structure with booth rental freedoms.
Yeah.
Because it's absolutely true. You can everyone has a key. They all have access to their booking app. They can come and go. If you want to do a client at 9 p.m., I don't care. If you want to do a client at 7 a.m., great. You want to do only a haircut, that is fine. I'm giving you all those freedoms. But I think
work one day a week, I'm going to fill the chair with someone else for the other day.
I'm at that point now. That point now. I have a couple part-time girls, and I had to have the conversation with, you guys need to share these chairs, and we have to share stations, and we might even have to do some split schedules. And I had a stylist call me this morning at the gym. She was like, hey, Beth, I just want to let you know I have no problem. I know I'm only working 3 days. Thank you so much for working with my schedule and with my kids' schedule. I don't care if you want to move me around anywhere as long as I have a place to work.
No, and that's the future.
Bless you, Jane.
But that is the future of this industry because life is fast. Life is not like it was in the 90s. It's not like it was in the 80s. It's not like it was in the 70s. Life is fast. And so to try to keep these really strict schedules in salons, like it's retail, there's no need.
No, and again, I think when people think, oh, DTH is only hourly and they do this, they suggest that I have girls that do not double book, right? Most of my team does not double book. Fine.
Right.
I have two, myself included sometimes when I have to, that do double book. I have a stylist. She was my first hire, Lindsay. She's still with me almost 5 years later.
I love that.
She has since had two babies. She only works Saturdays for right now. Starting in January, she's coming back 4 days a week, 9 to 12. Lindsay works 9 to 4 on Saturdays and can see 9 clients. She's been doing hair like as long as 20 plus years. She can do a partial in 45. So for me, Lindsay working 9 to 12, she might make more than someone that works 12 to 8. That's okay. Right. If you want to double book, great. If you don't, I'm fine with that too.
Right.
I still have the same mindset with either whatever they want to do, right?
Yeah, and again, that's going to the hourly thing. It's like that's just it's just a way to get paid.
It's just a way to get paid. And she likes working like that, and if someone doesn't want to come until 1 o'clock and Lindsay can use that same station and make, $600-$700, why would you not?
Exactly. It's funny. Station sharing is a method that we talk about a lot, but people don't usually get it until you get to a space like you're at where you're like, oh, I have this many chairs, this many people, and still some chairs are empty. And then you're like, the new wave of hairdressers doesn't work 9 to 5. Some people work 2 days a week. Some people just want to come in whenever they have clients. That was me. That was the hairdresser. I was like, I'm not going to be here full time. I'm just going to come in when I have clients. And I had to really look for salons that were okay with that. And the ones that were okay with it, I really stuck with because I was like, I don't want to be here full time. And there will be weeks that I come in, there'll be weeks that I don't. And if, at the time it was kind of a weird way of doing things. This is about 10 years ago in New York. But now understanding that we can all the idea of this is my station, that needs to just kind of die with the old way of doing things. It's not your station, it's Beth's station.
Right.
Right. it's a co-working space. Yes, it's your station. Yes, we want to all feel connected and like I belong here. But at the end of the day, that
It's a
openness.
mirror, an electrical cord, and a cart. Like, it's not that deep. It's really not that deep. It's so funny. I just added two. So now I have 12 stations. When I started with you, I had 6.
Wow,
I have
wow.
12. Yeah. And I might build 2 more, but I built 2 stations in the back because I'm lucky I started with you. Like, I never had a front desk, still don't. Never had a lot of retail. I had a very small amount. What I did have, I got rid of to add 2 stations. I just added 2 stations in the back and they're really cute. And I was in the back the other day working, and one of our clients who's older, and I love her to pieces, she said, Beth, you can't work in the back. And I said, why not? She said, you're the face of the collective. I said, Susie, it doesn't matter what station I work at. I'm still like the face of the collective. I like nothing
Susie was
slips by me.
I would like to be in the front. That's what she
Right.
was saying.
Susie is like 100 years old and she is going to outlive all of us. She's amazing.
She goes, I would like my hair to be done in front where everyone can see me, please.
Listen, Susie can have whatever she wants. We also Susie can do whatever she wants. We don't care.
It's funny because my fake person is always Susan.
Oh, okay.
So it's funny that her name is actually Susie.
Susie, yes.
So every fake client I make up in a story, it's Susan.
Oh, so mine's Edna Lipschitz. So when I worked at a salon years and years ago, and I wanted to leave early on a Saturday because that was like you had to just stay whether you had a client or not, right?
Yeah.
So I would go outside on my phone and I would call the front desk and I'd be like, "Hello," and Edna Lipschitz would book a full highlight on a Saturday at like 2:30.
Oh wait, you play the character of.
Yes, and I use her now as an example. Like, oh, if it was Edna, But Edna Lipschitz would cancel her full highlight like an hour before, and I would get to go home on a Saturday. so Edna Lipschitz is still around.
Look at the shit we had to do when we just didn't have freedom. We were like spies. We were undercover. We had
the front desk girls on the take. Like, they knew who Edna Lipschitz was, right? Like, they knew.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I've never known that. That is hilarious. That's one for I'm glad it's recorded.
Yeah, Edna Lipschitz. You heard it here.
I hope others start using that. If you work at a salon where you can't leave, you need to call from Edna Lipschitz.
Right. And if they would call to confirm and like Edna doesn't answer, you're like, oh, she's like 100. She probably doesn't answer the phone. I'm just saying.
I love that. So you mentioned that because you opened your salon with DTH, you don't have a front desk and you didn't have a lot of retail. What's the retail relationship that you have now? Like, as someone who doesn't have a lot of it, do reps still kind of come and try to sell, and what's that look like?
They do. And listen,
we love a rep.
My heart goes out to these reps because it don't look good for them. Like, the stuff that's been going on where they're just, all these big companies are trying to like just shrink down. I could see in the next few years, like, there's no reps. Like, they get rid of them. Maybe even they get rid of the stores and everything just comes from a warehouse. I feel like that's the direction it's taking. They still come in. I try to chit chat with them a little bit, but I'm very firm with them.
And go, where's your retail?
Yeah, they all know. Like, I carry like literally 3 things. That's it. It's great. I work with Salon Centric and they are smart. They know that salons are not carrying retail, but it's still a thing because your clients need products, right? So they created an online store where if you come in and you're like, oh, I loved what you used on me, I just send you the email link and in 2 days you get free shipping and it ships to you in 2 days. Easy. And they give you 15% commission. Like, and it's like piddlywinks. Yes. And years ago, again, I paid my car payment on my commission check. When Kerastase and Oribe was like the thing, I mean, I'd get $400 or $500 commission checks. That's gone. They sell that shit on Amazon now, and you can say it's fake. It ain't. Now it's at Ulta. Like,
do you remember when product companies kept trying to tell us that it was diversion and that these were fake products, yet they were selling them but they were telling us that they must have, like, the theory was like, it fell off the truck.
Yeah, it fell off the truck. Listen, if I was Mr.
But for years we were all like, oh wow, yeah, these products keep falling off these trucks.
Right? I remember taking pictures in Publix and sending it to the reps like, this is so unfair. But then I thought about it. And I'm like, you know what? If I was like Mr. Redkin or Mrs. Matrix, and I was selling to 1,000 salons,
Well,
but I could sell to 10 million CVSs, I'm selling to CVS.
Well, you know
Don't give
who
a shit.
owns Matrix and Redken? Edna
L'Oreal, right? Edna Lipschitz owns it. She sure does. And her husband, Vito Santori. He's driving the truck it fell off of.
Vito, I love that. Vito
Yep.
Santori.
So that was a fake name.
Or Italian.
That was a fake name that a guy that I worked with, he used to refer to people. He was like, oh, you know, Vito Santori over there. And I'm like, who?
Oh my God, I'm having so much fun. These stories. What, you know, going no retail, you never really felt the pain of ordering retail.
Mm-mm.
And then you just, I'm guessing you just never went into it because what's the point?
No.
What would you tell someone who has a full, because again, we kind of live in this bubble of like, well, of course they don't have retail, but there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of salons out there that still have these giant retail spaces. And then when they hear us say, no, you know, get rid of the retail and put stations, what would you tell them? Because you've done that a little bit. You've expanded your stations because there's no retail.
I just think the culture has changed. And I think the owner that is still pushing retail is probably someone around my age that's been in the business for many, many years. It's just not necessary. And I would say when you're ordering said retail every week, you are spending that money and hoping it sells.
Right.
So if you spend $500 on shampoo, you're hoping you're going to sell it for $1,000. If you double it, you got to keep up with the commission. You've got to do that. So
And
if
then
you make
reorder it.
Correct, you're not making that much money. So if you make, let's say, $12 on a bottle of shampoo, I'm going to build a station, and I don't care if I do 2 blow dries a week. I'm going to make hundreds and hundreds of dollars off a station. I think the no front desk probably scares people more out of a fear thing. Like, I don't want my employees answering the phone. I don't want them seeing the books. Right. Do you think in this day and age, they don't have all their clients' information?
On their phone. Yeah, Instagram.
They all have their Instagram. They all have their TikToks. Like, get over that. And it's an expense you do not need. And I've been saving this announcement because I wanted you to hear it first.
Oh, I'm so ready.
I haven't even told clients yet. I think like 1 or 2 of the girls knows. I am stepping away from my chair. I will only be doing hair 2 very short days starting December 1st.
Congrats.
Because I have realized that I am of way more service on my business than in my business.
It takes a while for that to hit. It
does. And listen, if something happens, someone leaves, your whole staff walks out, I know if I had to go into Beth Bradley mode, I can do 15, 20 single process and blow dries a day. I'll do it.
Exactly.
But now I'm opening up a station for my new talent, right? I had to make that shift. And I remember being so scared because I was like, my whole identity is a hairdresser. I've been a hairdresser for 24 years. I love doing hair. I love being around hairdressers. That part of my life is over.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to keep the few clients that I have, and I'm becoming an owner full time.
What was when did that shift? Like, what was the moment?
I think I've been thinking about it for a while. I think as I've noticed myself just not getting shit done that needs to be done in the salon. Networking, saying no to meetings, not being as available to my team. Like I'll say, hey, David, I really want to do our one-on-one today. And then something happens and my client shows up and then it's a week or 2 later. And I hate that. I want to be present fully in the business. And I cannot do that doing 6 or 7 people a day and trying to manage a team of 12.
Exactly.
And I'm better off building them than building. I don't need to build myself.
Right.
I need to build the collective hair studio.
Right.
But you got to take your ego out of it, especially if you're a busy ass hairdresser.
Right. Well,
but like you used to tell me, you're not a hairdresser anymore. You're an owner.
Yeah, it's an addiction. I really think doing hair, the dopamine and adrenaline that we get from hustling and doing hair. even today, the way I work with DTA, like I had a podcast before you, I have you, like, even the way I still work is like stack it. Like, let me just work and then let me crash, which is not always the healthiest, but it's a very hairdresser like dopamine. Like, I don't want to be booked in the morning and then have one in the afternoon and then have one. I want to be solid. And then you realize, and all of us realize as we get older, I don't want to live like, I can't live like that. But for every person, it's that road, that block or that moment of realization is so different. Some people figure it out earlier. Some people never figure it out. I know salon owners that are in their 60s, 70s, still doing hair, refusing to leave behind the chair, still not getting paid properly, even as an owner. And so I just hope that you can look at, not just from the coaching, but just with your own critical thinking of, you're running business really uniquely for a salon and it's fucking working.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I want.
Thank God.
Is this works, because I know it scares people, but it works. And I was talking to Sid about this. I was like, it's funny because everyone thinks our way is so complicated. I'm like, I think our way is the easiest way. I think what's complicated is breaking down all the beliefs and structures that we think we're supposed to have for a business. Well, I have to have a front desk. Well, you don't have to. You just were told that you need that. Well,
Yeah.
I need a good product company to work with so that, people don't go to salons because of products anymore. That was a thing in the 90s and the 80s. Like, oh, I go to a Redken salon, or I go to a Nevada salon, or now it's like, no, I go to Sarah, I go to Susan, right? Susan does my hair. And it's like, because you can get your product from anywhere.
They don't even ask.
No, they don't.
Rarely do I have somebody call the salon and say, do you have Enoa?
You're in Florida, so if any state was going to still be calling the salon,
right,
it's Florida.
And it's really rare. And it's 9 times out of 10, it's a guest that has some sort of allergy and like wants to know if you have an ammonia-free line. Yep. Fine.
Yeah. So you're entering this phase of your career where you're going to step away from the chair. I'm going to give you a warning. You're going to have a lot of withdrawals.
Yeah.
You're going to have days where you go, who am I? What do I do? What do I even do? You're going to feel lazy even though you're not. It's the symptoms of stepping out from behind the chair for the last 10 years, Sid and I have done. I'm like, this is market research. Like, this is a psychological paper waiting to be written of what happens to the hairdresser when they actually become an owner and step away. It's a new life. It's a new career. It's a new life. It's a new understanding of business. When you go from not making money from your hands to making money by supporting your team, you have to completely change, because your reactivity is going to want you to get your hands in hair, because not only is it dopamine, it makes you feel safe. This is what I know to do to make money.
Mm-hmm.
But you're you're getting to this place where you're like, I'm going to step away. You're still doing 2 days, but even then, then a couple years later, it's 1 day. And then a couple years later, but I'm excited for you to get comfortable with that. But just know there will be these moments of like, I don't know if this feels right. This feels so strange. And it always happens with students that work with DTH and they don't have to work behind the chair, where they're like, I just realized I like singing. I just realized I want to be a painter as well. I just realized me and my husband are going to work things out. And like, the amount of stuff that just starts coming to the top, to the surface, is so wild, because you're not inundated with clients and making everyone happy, and you actually get to kind of become this new person. I'm very excited for you.
I think it is scary. I can see all that, but I always say I'm very lucky. I've worked very hard to be able to say this, but I'm very lucky that I have a team that I know is fully supportive of this decision. Like, none of my team is going to go, oh, she doesn't even do hair anymore. I've been talking about this with my team for a while, and they see.
You're an example.
I am. And like, I joined this gym 1.5 years ago that it's very bougie. I love it. It's fabulous. Lifetime Fitness. Shout out to you. Because I thought this is going to be a great place, like, to meet clients. And 2 summers ago, it was the joke that like, oh my God, Lifetime Fitness is like keeping the collective hair studio. But because something that old school hairdressers do, and the new ones, most of you, don't get offended, they don't know how to just walk up and talk to somebody, right? Well, I must have gotten, I'm not joking, probably 30 new clients last summer just from the gym. And you know what I did? I walked up to good looking women and I handed them a bad bitches only sticker. They loved it. I don't do business cards. All the trainers, they all started coming. I go to a networking meeting, I come back with 3 or 4 new clients. They see the value that I have when I have time to do that. So I know that my team is going to be so supportive of this decision.
And you can support them.
Yeah, that they are excited. I think they lean into my mentorship and my coaching. And I think the reason a lot of people gravitate towards my salon, and I was at a job fair yesterday and I met a bunch of different salon owners and they all said, you know, your team just seems like they adore you. Yeah. And I said, the feeling is mutual. And we work really hard. And when people say, you know, commission salons aren't culture, you create your culture.
Right.
Right. Like I called it the Collective Hair Studio because I like the definition. It's a group of like-minded people. You are responsible for creating that.
Yeah.
As the owner. And you're responsible for hiring people that are on the same page and fostering that culture.
So we've hit an hour mark. This is the longest guest podcast we've had, which I'm very excited. But I have so much more to talk about, which we'll talk about in our follow-up on Instagram Live when this airs. But what do you want? What do you want to tell the listeners of the DTH podcast? Like, what words of wisdom do you want to leave with them? What do you want to encourage of them? But what are your final words for the listeners?
I would say if you are even considering opening your salon and you've been a hairdresser forever and you've not been a business person, I would say hire a coach. Hire a DTH coach. I think you will be a better owner and a more efficient owner when you don't have to unlearn bad habits. I also think, remember that it's temporary. Whatever it is, a stylist leaving, your rent going up, it's just temporary. It's going to pass. And being able to have the tools to not be reactive and know that this isn't a forever situation, you cannot put a price on it. You just can't.
Yeah, I know. I mean, again, watching your journey, that was a wild ride.
No one can have a worse opening than me.
I don't.
Nobody.
So.
No.
If I meet someone, I'll let you know. I mean, what you went through, but you know what? Again, happening for your benefit, you zoom out and you go, thank God it happened all at once.
Yeah.
Can you imagine it just being dragged out for years? Like, no.
No, I couldn't have sustained it emotionally, mentally, financially. There is no way they could have come over something and then had to go. Like if I would have had to deal with my divorce and then my mom died and then a year later I got sued and then another, I'd be in a mental facility. Yeah.
You need it all at once. And watching you grow and just watching from the sidelines now that you're out of coaching and hearing these updates and then hearing that you're stepping away from it, I'm just impressed. And I hope that you're proud of yourself. I know you've given me a lot of credit as a coach, but like you did all the fucking work and you should be very proud of yourself for that.
I am. And I so appreciate that because I feel like, you know, you guys don't pick everybody to work with. And especially you. I don't think everybody that calls DTH gets accepted. I don't. So I feel very honored that even now I'm part of it. And also I want people to know, and Rachel said this, that you don't have to use coaching forever. Like you don't have to think like, well, I can't ever afford coaching for the rest of it. You don't need to.
Right.
Maybe you just do it for like a year and get on your feet. Maybe you stay for the rest of your life. Like I'll never not be in therapy.
Exactly.
But I'm also, you come and go. Like I still,
life
you know, I listen to DTH. I follow a lot of people, you know, that I respect. So yeah.
No, I hope you're proud of yourself. You've achieved tremendous feats in 5 years. Thank you. Most businesses fail in 5 years. Yours is going the other direction. And I can't wait to like talk with you a year from now, 2 years from now, and see what else is happening.
I know. Sid's probably in the background going, wow, I didn't know all that shit happened.
She is definitely. No, but I just want to say thank you for being vulnerable, sharing some of those things that happened with the divorce and with being sued. These are all topics that these are just real life. This is life. Life is
It was
long,
life.
life is messy.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what makes our program a little bit different, is that we go with you. We go
Yeah.
with you
Every step of
throughout.
the way.
Yeah. Because to us it's all your personal life, it's all one thing. And I know a lot of other coaching companies that they will avoid that. And I get it, it's a gray area, but I just know that, when we built Destroy the Hairdresser, Sid and I had coaches, and they were there with us when things were good, and they were there with us when things were horrible, and they were there to help us grow. And I was like, that's what we need to give the hair industry. And so I hope that's what you got.
I feel like honestly, my coaching was the only solid thing that I had in that time. It was like you said, everything changed day to day. And the only solid thing I knew was that I had support
Yeah.
and advice. And I don't know what I would have done without it, honestly. Thank God I didn't have to know, because I had
Thank
you.
God you didn't have to know. Yeah, you're like, I actually never want to know what that would be like.
Sure don't.
Well, thank you so much, Beth. I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, David. Hi, Sid. Say hi to the baby, too.
All right, that was great.
Yay.
You feel good?
Yeah, I feel great.
Do you feel like you blacked